Kelly Day Adventures here with another install. We're doing the Synergy DragLink tie rod and a Fox steering stabilizer on the 2022 JLU. Step one, start removing the wheels. I gotta say, I am always so impressed with Synergy's boxing. Heavy duty plastic, it's just very secure. It wasn't scratched, moving around. So, benefit of going to Synergy's DragLink and tie bar ends is it's a single plane on your tie rod, which is going to be a lot more sturdy. I only have 40,000 miles on my Jeep, and it was already experiencing some issues, looseness in that drag link, which is why we're going to go ahead and switch this out. So here we go. Now that the wheels are out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and start removing some stock components, starting with the steering stabilizer, which is an 18 millimeter. Can't tell you how much I wish I had an impact, but do what we got to. Next, I remove the steering stabilizer bracket from the axle mounts, and that is a 13 millimeter. Next up, let's get this tie rod off. That is going to be a 21 millimeter. All right, so I've got the tie rod out. I've got the stock. Comparison to the Synergy, the stock is noticeably lighter. Synergy is way beefier. Now that that's out, I'm gonna go ahead and take out the drag link. Now I did go ahead and disconnect my sway bar, move it out of the way, so I can access the pitman arm. This is a 21 millimeter. Got to use a box wrench for that side, and then the other one we can obviously use a socket. All right, so now that I have the drag link out, I mean, this was wildly lighter than the Synergy version. The bend, I notice like the overall shape is a little bit different. I don't know if you can see that. Ended up having to use a pickle fork to remove. I did booger up the boot, but I'm not planning on reselling it, so I didn't really care. All right, time to reinstall or to install the Synergy. So I'm gonna set the length according to the instructions and then get it in there. Last thing that we're gonna do now that we have the drag link removed is to remove the track bar bolt at the 21 millimeter and replace it with the relocation bolt supplied by Synergy. All right, so I have the track bar bolt installed. You reuse the factory flag nut, and I'm gonna go ahead and torque it using my torque wrench to 125 foot-pounds of torque. According to the instructions, you want to have this side threaded all the way in on a Sahara model like mine, and do all the adjustments over here as long as you don't thread it farther than 3 inches out, if that makes sense. So keeping in line with this, I'm gonna measure the length of my stock, measure the length of the Synergy, and at least use that as a starting point at least. All right, with the castle nut installed, you are going to torque it to 55 foot-pounds of torque, and then install your cotter pin. And we will bend this back. And then once that's done, make sure that we get this bend pointed straight and put put in our pinch bolts. Now on this side, obviously, because we are not able to get our socket on there, unless you have a 21mm crow's foot, I'm not gonna be able to torque that, so we're just gonna tighten it down relatively tight and put in your cotter pin. With the castle nut installed, I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall my sway bar. I am going to install my Zerk fittings and then do the pinch bolts. All right, once you have the bend pointing forward, now it's time to tighten these pinch bolts to 90 foot-pounds of torque on both sides. On the non-double adjustable side, so the driver's side, thread it all the way in, and for a non-Rubicon, thread 4 turns out. If you have the Rubicon, start at 10 turns. Now we're gonna install the tie rod. All right, so now that you have your tie rod installed, finger tight on these castle nuts, reinstall your wheels, and you're gonna adjust this until the measurements between the front of your tire and the back of your tire are only 1/8 of an inch different, with your forward section of your tire being 1/8 of an inch closer in than the outside, or than the back side, if that makes sense. Just getting your toe. Once you have your toe, you're gonna install your castle nuts. I believe that's 55 foot-pounds of torque, and then put the cotter key in, and then 90 foot-pounds for the pinch bolts. And you wanna get your bar to where it is, the bend is going forward.